Our affair ignited like jet fuel on a runway. Elias would pull strings to get me on his flights, and we'd sneak moments in the crew rest areas, high above the clouds, where no one could touch us. But passion like that burns hot and fast. I started noticing the cracks. His late-night texts that went unanswered, the way he'd avoid eye contact after we'd land. Then came the rumors, another attendant, younger than me, flashing the same secretive smile I'd once worn. Jealousy clawed at me, turning love into something darker. I needed proof, something irrefutable to confront him with, or maybe even ruin him if he tried to walk away. Hello, my name is Sophia. I never thought my life would spiral into this nightmare, but here I am, whispering my story from the shadows of what was once a glamorous career in the skies. It all started 2 years ago when I joined Apex Airlines as a flight attendant. Fresh out of training, wide-eyed and eager, I caught the attention of Captain Elias Thorne, a charming silver-haired pilot with a reputation for being untouchable. He was married, of course, with a picture-perfect family back home, but that didn't stop the stolen glances during layovers or the whispered promises in dimly lit hotel bars. In the dimly lit corridors of international airports, where the hum of jet engines blended with the chatter of weary travelers, Captain Elias Thorne moved like a shadow among the elite. At 52, with salt and pepper hair that spoke of decades in the cockpit and eyes that held the weight of countless transoceanic crossings, he was the epitome of authority. His uniform, crisp and adorned with gold stripes, commanded respect from crew and passengers alike. But beneath that polished facade lurked a man entangled in desires that could unravel everything he'd built. His wife, back in their suburban home in Chicago, knew him as the devoted family man who sent postcards from exotic layovers. She didn't know about the stolen moments that had become his secret addiction. It began innocently enough, or so Elias told himself, during a routine flight from New York to Paris. Sophia Reyes, the new flight attendant, was 2'8", with olive skin, dark curls that framed her sharp features, and a smile that could disarm even the most turbulent passenger. Hired fresh from training, she exuded the kind of youthful energy that made long-haul flights bearable. Elias noticed her first in the galley, her hands deftly preparing trays while she hummed a soft melody. A casual conversation about turbulence turned into lingering eye contact, and by the time they touched down at Charles de Gaulle, he'd invited her for a team dinner at a quaint bistro near the hotel. That night, under the glow of Parisian streetlights, the affair ignited. Elias, nursing a glass of Bordeaux, confessed to the monotony of his life, the endless cycles of takeoff and landing, the emotional distance from his family. Sophia listened, her fingers brushing his across the table, sharing her own dreams of seeing the world beyond the confines of her small-town upbringing in Texas. One thing led to another, and in the hushed privacy of his hotel suite, they crossed the line. It was passionate, reckless, a release from the pressures of their high-altitude world. Elias promised it was a one-time thing, but the thrill was intoxicating. Back in the skies, their secret deepened. Elias, with his seniority, manipulated schedules to ensure Sophia was on his roster. On flights over the Atlantic where night fell like a blanket over the ocean, they'd steal away to the crew rest compartment. It was a cramped space meant for brief naps, but it became their hidden sanctuary. Whispers in the dark, bodies pressed close amid the vibration of the engines, the risk only heightened the excitement. Sophia would slip notes into his flight bag, scented with her perfume, detailing fantasies for their next rendezvous. Elias, ever the cautious pilot, destroyed them immediately, but the words lingered in his mind like contrails in the sky. As weeks turned to months, the tension began to build. Hidden meetings in airport lounges became fraught with paranoia. Elias would scan the crowds, convinced a colleague might spot them. Once, during a layover in Tokyo, they nearly got caught when the first officer knocked on Elias's door unexpectedly. Sophia hid in the bathroom, heart racing, as Elias feigned a headache to send the man away. The close call should have been a warning, but it only fueled their adrenaline-fueled passion. They laughed about it later, tangled in sheets, but Sophia felt a shift. Elias's texts grew sporadic, his excuses more elaborate. Family commitments, he'd say, or exhausted from the jet lag. Suspicions crept in like fog on a runway. Sophia overheard whispers in the crew room, another attendant, Lisa, a blonde bombshell with a reputation for flirting, boasting about special treatment from the captain. Was it jealousy or truth? Sophia started paying attention. The way Elias's gaze lingered on Lisa during briefings, the extra smiles he reserved for her. One night, after a red-eye from Los Angeles, Sophia confronted him in a dimly lit bar in Heathrow. "Is there someone else?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Elias denied it, pulling her close, but his eyes darted away, a telltale sign she'd learned to recognize from poker games with the crew. The clandestine romance, once a thrilling escape, now felt like a pressure cooker. Sophia's mind raced during flights, imagining scenarios where everything unraveled. What if his wife found out? What if the airline discovered the breach of protocol? Fraternization was frowned upon, but for a captain it could mean demotion or worse. Elias, too, felt the weight. His performance in the cockpit slipped subtly, with minor oversights and checklists, a sharper tone with the co-pilot. He confided in no one, but the guilt gnawed at him, turning layovers into anxious waits rather than passionate interludes. Yet, they couldn't stop. In Rome, they snuck away to a hidden trattoria, hands intertwined under the table as they plotted their next escape. In Dubai, a midnight swim in the hotel pool led to fervent kisses under the stars. Each meeting built the tension higher, like climbing to cruising altitude with storm clouds brewing below. Sophia began documenting little things, photos on her phone deleted immediately, but the urge to hold proof grew. Elias, sensing her unease, showered her with gifts, a silk scarf from Milan, earrings from Hong Kong, but material things couldn't quell the growing storm. One fateful flight to Sydney pushed the suspicions to a breaking point. Mid-ocean, with the cabin lights dimmed, Sophia saw Elias and Lisa sharing a laugh in the forward galley. It was innocent, perhaps, but to her it was betrayal incarnate. That night in the hotel, she rifled through his suitcase while he showered, finding a receipt for a necklace she hadn't received. The confrontation was explosive, whispers turning to heated accusations in the room. Elias admitted to a flirtation but swore it meant nothing. Sophia stormed out, tears streaming, vowing to end it. But by morning they were back in each other's arms, the cycle repeating. The affair had become a web of deceit, entangling them both. Hidden meetings now carried the shadow of doubt. Every glance was a potential exposure. Sophia's friends noticed her distraction, her once vibrant energy replaced by dark circles and forced smiles. Elias's marriage strained further. His wife sensed the distance, questioning his frequent absences. The tension mounted, a thriller unfolding at 30,000 feet, where one wrong move could send everything crashing down. Little did they know this secret would soon collide with something far more dangerous, turning love's whispers into screams of peril. Sophia's world had shattered like a dropped champagne flute in the first-class cabin. The affair with Captain Elias Thorne, once a whirlwind of passion at cruising altitude, now left her reeling from betrayal. She'd caught glimpses, his lingering smiles at Lisa, the new attendant with her peroxide blonde hair and coy laughter that echoed through the galley. Texts from Elias grew cold, excuses piling up like delayed baggage. Busy with family, he'd say, but Sophia knew better. The sting of rejection fueled a fire in her, one that demanded retribution. Not just confrontation, but something that would trap him, expose his lies in a way he couldn't deny or delete. That's when her mind latched onto the black box. The cockpit voice recorder, that unassuming device bolted into the avionics bay, was the airline's silent sentinel. It captured every word spoken in the flight deck, looping over 2 hours of audio designed to survive crashes and reveal truths in the aftermath. Tamper-proof, they called it, with seals and protocols to prevent interference. But Sophia wasn't just any flight attendant. Before joining Apex Airlines, she dabbled in aviation electronics during a stint at a technical college in Dallas. She remembered lectures on flight data recorders, how they were the key to unraveling mysteries in the sky. And she had a contact, Marcus, an old classmate turned freelance engineer, shady enough to bend rules for the right price or favor. They dated briefly, and he owed her for covering his tracks on a botched project years ago. Late one night, in her cramped apartment overlooking LaGuardia Airport, Sophia dialed Marcus. Planes roared overhead as she paced, her voice low and urgent. "I need a favor, something discreet." Marcus listened, intrigued by the challenge. He could replicate a cockpit voice recorder, he said, using off-the-shelf components and some custom circuitry. But not just a copy, a modified version, one that enhanced audio sensitivity, picking up whispers from across the cockpit, and with a remote trigger to start extended recording modes. It could loop indefinitely if needed, capturing confessions without the standard override. "Why?" he asked, suspicion creeping in. Sophia spun a tale of safety concerns, a way to monitor pilot fatigue anonymously. He bought it, or pretended to, delivering the device in a plain brown package 2 weeks later. The modified black box was a marvel of illicit engineering. sleek orange, hued like the real thing, but with hidden ports for data extraction. Sophia tested it in her living room, whispering secrets into a mock setup, replaying the crystal clear audio on her laptop. It worked flawlessly, amplifying even the faintest breaths. Her plan crystallized. The next flight with Elias, a routine red-eye from JFK to Heathrow. She'd swap it during pre-flight preparations when the plane sat idle on the tarmac, crew bustling with checklists. Access to the avionics bay wasn't easy. It required a key card and knowledge of the hatch under the forward fuselage. But Sophia had observed maintenance crews, memorized procedures. She volunteered for the early shift, citing her enthusiasm to learn more about the aircraft. The day arrived, crisp autumn air mingling with jet fuel scents at the gate. Sophia's heart hammered as she boarded the empty Boeing 777, her uniform hiding the bulge of the modified device in her oversized bag. The cockpit was deserted. Elias and the co-pilot were in a briefing. She slipped below into the electronics equipment bay, a labyrinth of wires and panels lit by harsh fluorescence. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the chill. Using a pilfered tool from the galley cart, she pried open the recorder's mount. The real black box came out with a click, heavy in her hands. She slid the fake in, aligning connectors perfectly, resealing it with adhesive she'd sourced online. 10 minutes, that's all it took. She emerged, composing herself as the ground crew milled about, none the wiser. Back in the cabin, Sophia went through motions, stocking carts, checking seats, her mind racing. The modified device was active now, its enhanced mics ready to ensnare Elias. She imagined his voice, confessing the affair with Lisa, begging for discretion, words that would be her weapon. Perhaps she'd anonymously leak it to the airline, or confront him privately, forcing him to choose. Betrayal had twisted her love into vengeance. This wasn't just about proof, but control. As passengers boarded, Sophia flashed her professional smile, but inside, paranoia gnawed. What if someone noticed the swap? What if the device malfunctioned, triggering alarms? Elias arrived last, striding into the cockpit with his usual confidence. He nodded at Sophia, a flicker of something, guilt, in his eyes. The flight pushed back, engine spooling up as they taxied. Sophia strapped in for takeoff, the plane leaping into the night sky. At the cruise, she waited for her moment. Elias called her forward as he often did under the guise of discussing passenger needs. The co-pilot excused himself for a break, leaving them alone amid the glow of instruments. Sophia's pulse thundered. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Elias sighed, glancing at the door. "Not now, Sophia." But she pressed, mentioning Lisa, the rumors, the necklace receipt she'd found. The confession came haltingly at first, then in a rush. It was a mistake. Elias admitted, his words low, unaware of the trap. "Lisa means nothing. It's you I care about." He detailed the flirtations, the one-night slip in Madrid, pleading for forgiveness. Every syllable fed into the modified recorder, its circuits humming silently, capturing the incriminating audio with unforgiving clarity. Sophia feigned tears, buying time, drawing out more details, dates, hotels, promises broken. Satisfaction bloomed in her chest, mingled with sorrow. This was her revenge, but it tasted bitter. As the flight progressed, unease set in. Elias grew distant, suspicious, perhaps, of her questions. Back in the galley, Sophia overheard radio chatter about minor system glitches. Nothing major, but enough to spike her anxiety. Had the swap affected other systems? Avionics were interconnected. A faulty connection could cascade. She pushed the thought away, focusing on the plan's next phase, retrieving the device post-landing. In London during deplaning, she'd reverse the swap, extract the data later. But fate intervened. Turbulence hit hard over the Irish Sea, the plane bucking like a wild stallion. Alarms chirped in the cockpit, nothing critical, but Elias's voice over the intercom was tense. Sophia strapped in, gripping her seat as the aircraft shuddered. In the chaos, she wondered if her tampering had weakened something. The landing was rough, tires screeching on wet tarmac, but they taxied safely. Relief washed over her as she prepared to disembark. Elias caught her arm in the jetway. "We need to end this," he whispered, eyes hard. Sophia nodded, hiding her triumph. The black box held his secrets now. Retrieval proved riskier. With the crew lingering, she waited until the plane was in maintenance. Slipping back aboard under the pretense of forgotten items, she accessed the bay again. The device came out easily, and the original was reinstated. In her hotel room, she plugged it into her laptop, headphones on. Elias's voice filled her ears, clear, damning, every whisper amplified. Tears came then, the weight of her actions crashing down. Driven by betrayal, she'd crossed into dangerous territory, tampering with Aviation's sacred truth keeper. What started as a quest for confession had planted seeds of potential disaster, ones that would soon sprout in ways she never anticipated. The transatlantic flight from New York to London sliced through the night sky like a silver arrow, the Boeing 777 humming steadily at 35,000 feet. Outside, the Atlantic Ocean stretched into infinite darkness, a void unbroken except for the occasional flicker of distant lightning on the horizon. Inside the cockpit, Captain Elias Thorne gripped the yoke with practiced ease, his eyes scanning the array of glowing instruments. The co-pilot, a stoic veteran named Raj, monitored the autopilot, sipping coffee from a thermos. The cabin behind them was dimmed for the overnight haul, passengers dozing under thin blankets, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the flight deck. Sophia Reyes, the flight attendant whose heart burned with betrayal, moved through the aisles with mechanical precision. She checked on a snoring businessman here, adjusted a child's pillow there, but her mind was a storm of anticipation. The modified black box she'd swapped in earlier pulsed silently in the avionics bay, its enhanced microphones primed to capture every nuance. Her plan hinged on this moment, getting Elias alone, pressing him until he cracked. The affair with Lisa, the lies, the dismissals, it all festered inside her like cabin pressure, building unchecked. She needed his confession, raw and recorded, to wield as her weapon. The call came over the intercom, Elias's voice calm and authoritative. "Sophia, could you bring up some fresh coffee? And let's discuss the turbulence forecast." It was their code, a pretext for privacy. Raj, sensing the routine, unbuckled. "I'll stretch my legs, check on the crew," he said, stepping out and closing the door behind him. The cockpit sealed shut with a soft click, leaving Elias and Sophia alone amid the whir of fans and the steady beep of radar. Sophia set the coffee tray down, her hand steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. She locked eyes with Elias, who swiveled in his seat, a faint smile playing on his lips. "You look tense," he murmured, reaching for her hand. But she pulled back, her expression hardening. "We need to talk, Elias. Now." The captain's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his features. "Here? Sophia, we're in the middle of the ocean. Can't this wait for London?" His voice was low, cautious, unaware that every word was being etched into the tampered recorder below. She leaned in, her whisper fierce. "No, it can't. I know about Lisa, the flirting, the nights in Madrid. Don't deny it. I found the receipt, heard the rumors." Elias's face paled, his grip tightening on the armrests. The cockpit felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the altitude was pressing down on them. "Sophia, please. It's not what you think." But pressure mounted like an approaching front. She pressed harder, her voice rising just enough to register clearly on the device. "Tell me the truth, or I'll make sure everyone knows your wife, the airline, the press, how you've been using your position to play games with us." Elias glanced at the door, paranoia creeping in. The instruments blinked indifferently, the autopilot holding course, but his world tilted. "Fine," he hissed, leaning forward. "It happened once, Lisa. She came on to me during that layover. I was drunk, lonely, but it meant nothing. You're the one I want, Sophia. We've had something real." His words tumbled out, damning details spilling like fuel from a breached tank. The hotel room number, the whispered promises to Lisa that mirrored those he'd given her, the cover stories he'd fed his family. Unknowingly, he painted himself as the villain, his confessions laced with desperation and excuses. "I can end it with her. Just give me time." Sophia's heart twisted, triumph mixed with pain. The recorder captured it all, every inflection, every pause, pregnant with guilt. But as Elias spoke, a shadow of doubt crossed his face. "Why are you pushing this now? Here?" His eyes narrowed, suspicion dawning like a red warning light. The plane hit a pocket of mild turbulence, jostling them slightly, amplifying the tension. Sophia feigned vulnerability, drawing out more admissions of other indiscretions, a pattern of affairs over his career. "I've been careful," he admitted, "but with you, it's different. Lies, she thought, all of it fodder for her trap. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Raj's knock came too soon. Everything okay in there? Elias composed himself, calling back affirmatively. As Sophia exited, she caught Elias's gaze, a mix of regret and unease. Back in the galley, paranoia gripped her. Had he suspected something? The modified device was her secret, but the confession was secured, irrefutable evidence of his betrayal. Yet, the thrill soured into dread. What if the tampering was discovered? Aviation authorities were ruthless. A single anomaly could ground the plane, trigger investigations. The flight wore on, the cabin stirring as dawn approached. Elias remained in the cockpit, his mind racing. He replayed the conversation, unease gnawing. A minor system alert flashed. An irregularity in the avionics telemetry, dismissed as a glitch, but it planted seeds of doubt. Was Sophia recording him somehow? Impossible, he thought. But paranoia escalated. He radioed air traffic control casually, masking his growing anxiety. Impending doom loomed like storm clouds. If that conversation leaked, his career, marriage, and everything would crater. Sophia, meanwhile, patrolled the aisles, her smile a mask. Passengers complained of the bumps, but her turbulence was internal. The black box held power now, a Pandora's device that could destroy them both. As the plane began its descent into Heathrow, the thriller elements peaked. Elias's furtive glances through the door, Sophia's racing pulse. Little did they know, this mid-flight revelation was the calm before the catastrophe, a confession that would echo far beyond the clouds, pulling them into a vortex of suspicion and ruin. The emergency landing in Iceland was a blur of flashing lights and blaring sirens. The Boeing 777 skidding to a halt on the runway at Keflavik International Airport amid a storm of freezing rain. What should have been a routine transatlantic hop had devolved into chaos when the hydraulic systems failed mid-flight, sending the plane into a terrifying shudder. Alarms wailed in the cockpit. Passengers screamed as oxygen masks dropped, and Sophia Reyes clung to her jump seat, her mind reeling from the confession she'd just extracted from Captain Elias Thorne. The modified black box, her tool of vengeance, hummed silently in the avionics bay, oblivious to the pandemonium it may have unleashed. As the evacuation slides deployed and passengers stumbled onto the tarmac, wrapped in foil blankets against the biting wind, the first whispers of sabotage rippled through the crowd. Elias, pale and shaken, directed the crew with barked orders, his eyes darting to Sophia more than once. What the hell happened up there? The co-pilot Raj muttered as they regrouped in the terminal. Elias shook his head, but suspicion had already taken root. During the descent and the heat of the crisis, he'd noticed an anomaly, a faint flicker in the avionics panel, something off about the wiring. Paranoia from their confrontation fueled his doubts. Had Sophia done something, tampered with the plane to force his hand? The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, descended like hawks, along with Icelandic authorities and Apex Airlines crisis team. The aircraft was cordoned off, and black box retrieval was prioritized. Sophia watched from the edges, her uniform disheveled, feigning shock while her pulse thundered. The device she'd installed wasn't just a recorder. Its modifications included subtle boosts to audio circuits that drew extra power, potentially straining the interconnected systems. Had that caused the hydraulic glitch? Or was it Elias's own panic? In the cockpit during the failure, he'd frantically checked panels, his hands unsteady from the earlier argument. Unbeknownst to her, he'd attempted a quick diagnostic, jostling wires in a bid to silence a phantom alert, botching it and triggering the cascade. Interviews began in a makeshift conference room at the airport hotel, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows. Elias went first, his story polished. Routine flight, sudden system failure, heroic landing. But cracks showed, sweat on his brow, evasive answers about crew interactions. Sophia's turn came next. She stuck to protocol, describing the turbulence and passenger panic, but the investigator's eyes narrowed. Any unusual activity pre-flight? No, she lied, her voice steady. Meanwhile, a passenger, a retired engineer, overheard in the lounge, claim ahead had seen a crew member near the avionics hatch before takeoff. Rumors spread like wildfire through the stranded group. Was it a mechanical error or foul play? The black box recovery sealed the doom. Technicians extracted it under scrutiny, plugging it into analyzers. The flight data was standard until the audio playback. Elias's voice filled the room, the confession, raw and explicit, detailing the affair with Sophia, the fling with Lisa, and pleas for silence. But interspersed were the crisis moments, Elias's accusations mid-descent. "Sophia, did you touch the systems? This is your doing," gasps echoed. The investigators exchanged glances. Sabotage suspicions exploded. The modified device's enhanced audio had captured ambient sounds too clearly. A faint click from the bay pre-flight. Sophia's muffled footsteps. Metadata anomalies flagged it as non-standard, triggering a forensic deep dive. Apex Airlines grounded the crew. Media swarmed the hotel. Headlines blared. Love triangle at 35,000 feet. Captain's confession amid near crash. Elias's wife was notified. Her arrival was a storm of tears and fury in the lobby. Confrontations escalated. In a heated exchange behind closed doors, Elias cornered Sophia. "You swapped the box, didn't you? To trap me? And now look what you've done." His face twisted in rage, his hands grabbing her arms. She denied it, but fear choked her. The passenger heart attack during the panic? Ruled stress-induced, but fingers pointed at the crew's distractions. Whispers of manslaughter charges loomed. The fatal turn came that night. Elias, unraveling under pressure, snuck back to the impounded plane under the cover of darkness, bribing a guard with promises of inside info. He aimed to retrieve evidence, perhaps swap the box back to cover tracks. But Sophia, anticipating this, followed him. In the shadowy fuselage, amid the scent of jet fuel and rain, they clashed. "You ruined us," Elias shouted, lunging for the avionics panel. Sophia pushed back, a struggle ensuing, tools scattered, wires yanked. In the melee, Elias slipped on a puddle, cracking his head against a bulkhead. Blood pooled, his body going limp. Sophia stared in horror. Accident or intent? Panic surged. She fled, wiping prints, but not before the modified black box, still connected remotely via her hidden app, captured the scuffle's audio, grunts, accusations, and the sickening thud. Elias's body was found by maintenance, staged as a suicide perhaps, but forensics told otherwise. Bruises on his arms matched Sophia's grip strength. The black box audio, now Exhibit A, painted a murder mystery, a scorned lover's revenge gone lethal. Investigations widened. Lisa questioned, revealing her own jealousy. Elias's wife admitted to threatening divorce. Sabotage confirmed. The hydraulic failure traced to Elias's botched mid-flight fix, sparked by the tampered recorder's power draw. But the confrontation turned it deadly. Sophia vanished into the Icelandic night, identity shed like a discarded uniform. Warrants issued, tampering, endangerment, homicide. The affair, once whispered club, is now a global scandal, claiming lives and careers. The chain of events, betrayal to blackout, box to bloodshed, unraveled like a nosedive, leaving wreckage in its wake. Every flight since, survivors wondered, was it love's poison or fate's cruel turbulence? The skies held no answers, only echoes of a confession that killed. The investigation into the Iceland crash peeled back layers of deception like stripping paint from a weathered fuselage, each revelation more shocking than the last. Sophia Reyes, once the architect of her own vengeance, now found herself ensnared in a web far more intricate than she'd imagined. The modified black box, retrieved amid the wreckage, didn't just hold Elias Thorne's mid-flight confession. It unraveled a tapestry of motives that twisted the entire affair into something sinister. What began as a lover's spat at 35,000 feet evolved into a psychological thriller where trust evaporated like fuel in a leak, and every character harbored secrets that could bring down empires. In the sterile NTSB offices in Washington, D.C., weeks after the emergency landing, lead investigator Dr. Harlan Voss pored over the audio files. The enhanced recorder had captured Elias's damning admissions, the affair with Sophia, the fling with Lisa, the pleas for discretion. But buried deeper in the loops, amplified by the device's illicit modifications, were whispers that changed everything. During the pre-flight setup, faint voices echoed, not just Sophia's footsteps in the avionics bay, but a hushed conversation. "Make sure it's set." Amala voice murmured, unfamiliar yet authoritative. "She'll take the fall if it goes south." Sophia froze when she heard the playback during her interrogation, her blood turning to ice. That wasn't Elias. Who had been there? Flashbacks haunted her as agents grilled her under fluorescent lights. The plan had seemed foolproof. Swap the box, extract the confession, reclaim her power. But now, anomalies surfaced. The hydraulic failure wasn't random or caused solely by her tampering. Forensic analysis revealed deliberate sabotage, micro-cuts in the lines, timed to fail over the Atlantic. Elias's botched mid-air fix had accelerated it, but the origin traced back to ground maintenance. And the passenger who died of a heart attack? Toxicology later showed traces of a rare stimulant in his system, slipped perhaps in his in-flight meal. Coincidence? Or part of a larger scheme? The twist deepened when Lisa, the other attendant, cracked under pressure. Summoned for questioning, she arrived with tear-streaked makeup and a lawyer in tow. It wasn't just an affair, she confessed, her voice trembling. Elias hadn't been cheating randomly. He'd been playing them both, but not for romance. Lisa revealed emails. Elias was entangled in a corporate espionage ring within Apex Airlines. Rival carriers paid handsomely for flight data, routes, and safety protocols. The black box swap? Elias had orchestrated it himself. Using Sophia as a pawn, he tipped off Marcus, her shady engineer contact, to provide the modified device, knowing Sophia's jealousy would drive her to act. The confession was bait, designed to incriminate her if things went awry. Psychological suspense built as Sophia pieced it together in her holding cell. Elias's charm, the manipulated schedules, it was all a cover. He discovered her tech background early, grooming her for this role. The confrontation in the cockpit, staged. His words, laced with just enough truth to sting, were meant to be recorded, painting her as unstable. But the deeper motive, Elias planned to trigger a controlled incident, blame it on faulty equipment, and collect insurance while selling Apex's vulnerabilities. The modified box would prove crew error, diverting scrutiny. When Sophia swapped it unknowingly on his behalf, she became the perfect scapegoat. High-stakes aviation intrigue unfolded in boardrooms and back channels. Apex executives scrambled, stock prices plummeting amid leaks. Voss uncovered ties to a shadowy consortium, foreign investors eyeing Apex's routes. Elias's fatal confrontation with Sophia in the fuselage wasn't an accident. Autopsy revealed he'd ingested the same stimulant, perhaps self-administered in panic, leading to his stroke-like collapse during their struggle. But wait, surveillance footage from Keflavik showed a third figure lurking near the plane that night, Marcus, the engineer. He'd followed them, intervening when Elias turned violent, delivering the fatal blow to protect his own skin. Marcus wasn't just a favor-owing friend, he was Elias's handler, embedded to ensure the plan's success. Sophia's mind reeled in solitude, the walls closing in like a depressurizing cabin. The confession uncovered her own buried motives too, abandonment issues from a pilot father who'd left her family, fueling her obsession with control. Psychological profiles painted her as a victim-turned-villain, but the twist redeemed her partially. She'd unwittingly exposed the conspiracy. In a dramatic hearing, Voss played the full audio, including overridden loops where Elias discussed payoffs. Once the box implicates her, we're clear, he'd whispered to an unknown caller pre-flight, the signal boosted by the device's hacks. The narrative climax in a federal courtroom, suspense hanging thick as contrails, Sophia, testifying under immunity, detailed the affair's manipulation. Lisa corroborated, producing encrypted files. Marcus, arrested in Dallas, sang like a canary. The sabotage aimed at a bigger target, forcing Apex into bankruptcy for a hostile takeover. The heart attack victim? A whistleblower en route to regulators, silenced to tie up the loose ends. Elias's death, ruled homicide, was pinned on Marcus, but the psychological toll lingered. Sophia walked free, but scarred. Every engine roar a reminder of betrayal's altitude. In the end, the twisted revelation blended heartbreak with corporate greed, turning a personal vendetta into an international scandal. Aviation protocols tightened, black boxes upgraded with biometrics. Sophia vanished into obscurity, perhaps under a new name, flying coach to distant shores. But the intrigue echoed. In the skies, motives run deeper than clouds, and confessions can crash worlds. The final shock? A posthumous message from Elias hidden in the box's data. Forgive me, Sophia. It was always about survival, love, or leverage. The line blurred, leaving psychological shadows that no investigation could fully illuminate.